streaming platforms, public access channels, the KittyRose lifestyle, or the program underwriters.
Tim's on my feet, stomping out the negativity. Everybody not a friend of me. Spread the love, still I move deliberately. Bully face on, but the smile be heavenly. Brooklyn girls, so they love the energy, love sincerity. So I take the liberty to take them on a journey lyrically through hallways and.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Not 50 Shades of Grey, that's an inside joke, but you'll see why later. Where we discuss shades of gray. Welcome. I am your host, Minister Cat, aka KittyRose, and I'm joined today with my second guest in-house co-host, and he's a man again, everyone. Let's welcome HE Brathwaite to the studio, everyone. Yay! Let's give him some applause. No applause. I applaud you, brother.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How are you doing today?
I am. Well, honestly, my spirit is low, but it's getting more and more better watching and being in the studio with you.
Thank you.
I have a little pain in my mouth, so I'm gonna need you to hold us down
Don't
today.
worry, I can do that for you.
All right, cool.
All right.
So I'm so glad that you came back because I had you on a couple of months ago for our Spotlight segment because your uncle's exhibit was going on here in New York, the Black is Beautiful exhibit.
Yes.
But I really felt like I did you a disservice. I felt like our interview was rushed. I felt like people really didn't get a sense of you. And, you know, fortunately, but unfortunately, the real story of the 3 degrees of separation is real in the field because we don't know each other, but we know mad people. Like, I have solid relationships with mad people in the same circle. So welcome back to the show in person, and let's get right to it.
Okay.
All right, so today's episode is going to be, today's topic of the week is controlling the narrative. Controlling the narrative. I wanted to talk about that with you, especially because, like I told you, my spirit was low today. Well, been low this week. The last few weeks, I've been talking to our audience about being self-employed, being consistent, you know, staying the course, all of that good stuff that, you know, we're supposed to just share with folks. But there's challenges that come with running and owning your own business. You know, I've been doing this since 2006.
Wow.
So it's not like just the last 5 years. This is, you know, going on 20 years. So of course I'm gonna have highs and lows, you know. But I noticed that since the Black is Beautiful exhibit has been showcased the end of last year at the New York Historical Society, that AJASS has been doing mad like promotion, like mad marketing, you know what I'm saying? So I know that the AJASS Foundation and the Black is Beautiful is connected, so I kind of just wanted to have you come on because it's been doing so well in regards to marketing. I wanted you to tell us some behind the scenes shit of the not so glamorous stuff that's going on, because you guys are getting ready to do a naming ceremony, a block ceremony. Like, there's a lot of great, awesome stuff that's happening.
Yes.
But
well, I'll say this: a lot of stuff you've been seeing because you're on social media, and a lot of times things get picked up, they go viral. Other people pick them up, they're enjoying it, and of course, we're just coming out of Black History Month, and you'll still probably see a lot more because we're into now Women's History Month, and the Grandassa Models, who are the engine of the Black is Beautiful movement, are a large component of that. And all of that, the Grandassa Models are part of AJASS, but they have been they've been such a powerful force that a lot of times they're seen as their own entity, but they're actually part of AJASS.
Controlling the narrative.
Exactly. So sometimes it's hard to control a narrative when the narrative, then part of it is writing its own story, you know, and a lot of times it's very hard to control that because everybody has their own experience with how they see that term, that movement, and you know, just about what it means to them. So controlling it is almost impossible, but I am able to give origins to it, share stories and chronology about how these things happen. So controlling it, I never try to do.
Okay.
But in regards to key factual things. I'm good at that.
Okay, because we want to know that out of the 7 children that your parents had, how you are the one carrying the torch. But before we go into that, let's go see the first video. Actually, the first the first video that you sent me, and then we're going to talk for like a second, and then go into the second video.
Sure.
Let's hit it.
The African Jazz Art Society and Studios was a powerful organization that evolved out of the Garvey movement.
When we organized the Jazz Art Society, we were primarily focused on producing jazz concerts in the Bronx.
The one place where we have made real progress is with hair, where black women are totally liberated in terms of hair.
We didn't know how this idea would be accepted, because at that time the idea of black women wearing their hair in its natural state was not very popular. That was the beginning of what some people call the Black Arts Movement, some call the Black is Beautiful movement, but it was a movement of the aesthetical showcasing of the black experience, the black aesthetics, which had not really been featured since the 1920s.
Back then, growing up, black was not in, it was not in style to be black. My mother used to say, how are you going to get a job now with that nappy hair? You know what I mean? So people really didn't believe that you would fit into corporate America and things like that.
And when the Grandassa gave me a worldview, more of what's going on in Africa. But all these young girls now who wear their hair in various straits of curl, kinky, half curl, half kinky, half this, one day this way, one day, it's because they have the freedom to wear their hair in any kind of way, and the knowledge of knowing that they look darn good.
Elambe Brath, Kwame Brathwaite, Chris Esmondizes Hall, Jimmy Abu, Frank Adu, Bob Gums.
We would like to shine a spotlight on a group of brothers who came together in 1956 to form an organization that was later known as the African Jazz Art Society Studios in the Bronx, New York. AJASS, pioneers of the Black is Beautiful movement.
Black is beautiful in my natural hair. Out! And wearing my Stevie to represent music.
Indeed.
AJ. Now, what's funny but not funny is I'm a capitalist. So when I see a niche, I grab on. That's my marketing background. So I saw that AJASS saw a niche because we were unrepresented.
Right.
And when it came to using how we can, I guess, express ourselves, black women was the niche at that moment because of how we were unrepresented, how we weren't getting. You tell me. Let me not tell the story.
So basically, AJASS, as the one that you heard in the trailer, AJASS stands for African Jazz Art Society and Studio. Initially, they were Jazz Art Society and Studio. Yes, and then they were African Jazz Art Society. So they've really had three different names since they founded in 1956 at 751 Kelly Street.
We're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop in the Bronx.
Indeed.
And then you guys also started in the Bronx.
Exactly.
But you're not 50 yet, you're like 20. So how did you come in and telling us the story? Tell us how you came in, and then we're gonna go into the video about the Grandassa Models.
Well, I came in just because the story is very much connected to me. That area, 751 Kelly Street in the Bronx, that's where my grandparents live. AJASS was founded in their basement, you know.
Wow.
Initially what AJASS was trying to do was keep jazz music in the Bronx, and they wanted to, as Dizzy Gillespie, why am I having Dizzy? Just say Dizzy.
Yeah.
Everybody knows him as Dizzy. I'm butchering his last name. Dizzy Gillespie, you know, wanted to keep jazz as an African art form. They didn't want it to lose its roots and its heritage. So that was what AJASS really set out to do. So a lot of times, a lot of the acts and artists, you know, who had lived in the Bronx, South Bronx in particular, they would try to bring everything to Manhattan, outprice it, and, you know, just take the commerce away from it. So that's initially what AJASS started doing.
Because it's crazy. I would have never given so much credit to the Bronx. I mean, we recognize the Bronx as the birthplace of hip-hop, but I did not realize that jazz, or at least the concept of jazz in New York, was starting in the Bronx. I won't say,
I mean, it wasn't so much the concept of jazz in New York started. It was just that the Bronx had a lot of talented artists.
Okay.
And venues which were highlighting them, showcasing them, were not getting, you know, were all being outsourced to other places.
Okay.
Mainly Lower Manhattan. And so people like Lou Donaldson, who was in the Bronx, Lou's probably like 96 right now.
Is he still with us?
Yes, he's still with us. His family moved him out to Florida because of his age, and he was here alone. We have, if you ever go to 2nd Avenue train station, you'll see a guy with a Braithophone is what it's called. He's a jazz artist named George Braith. He has a huge mural. He's still alive. He's 80. He lives in Staten Island right now. He was one of the main artists of AJASS. And then Jimmy Owens. Jimmy Owens started with AJASS when he was 15.
Do you like jazz?
Yes, I like jazz. I love jazz. I love music, period. But yes, I love jazz because my father played it all the time. My mother was a huge fan of Billie Holiday, so I grew up hearing jazz as an influence. But in a way, initially when I first got exposed to it, I felt like jazz was old people's music. But the more I learned about jazz and other artists, it's a matter of getting exposed to the right artists, and that's really what will cater how you feel about jazz, in my opinion. So, but jazz had, you know, to keep it in there, you had to have the right people within it, and it was a large movement. If you look, there's a book here. It's called The Artistic Activism of Ylambe Brath.
I see.
That book is done by the University of Mississippi with a professor in a university out in the Georgia system, and it's really about a lot of the start with AJASS also have to do with artistic design. And 3 of the members of AJASS were noted in 1972 as the 3 of the top 50 black designers in the United States. In fact, speaking of it, there is an exhibit that's going to be coming up in Lower Manhattan featuring 3 of the members of AJASS and their contributions to design, you know, and from some old stuff that they had did a long time ago back in the Bronx.
Well, I recently just saw remember there was an expose on like the fashion fair models, fashion show with Ebony, and I used to remember watching those all the way up until when I first started modeling. So when I saw the Grandassa Models, that's the beginning. That was like the birth of us being allowed to be our own fashion. You know, again, I love when.
Let me tell you, New York Magazine about 7 years ago now, they did in their magazine, they had the top 10 things that make New York the fashion capital of the world. And the fashion capital. You know who's in number 8?
No.
The Grandassa Models, Naturally 62, when they first debuted in Naturally 62.
Well, let's see what it's all about.
That was the number 8 most important. They
recently.
Yeah, it was this. I still have the magazine. It's probably about 5 years. I said
that's
8.
Still recent.
Yeah,
5 years
ago.
For something that happened in 1968, 72?
1962.
Come on now.
Yeah, so it looked at the last over 100 years, the top 10 events that made New York.
Because black is beautiful.
Basically.
Amen.
All day, every day.
All day, every day. Let's go check out that video about them.
Okay.
The Grandassa Models forever changed the way we think about hair, high fashion, and ourselves. The Grandassa Models were the engine of the Black is Beautiful movement since they debuted in January 1962 at the Purple Manor in Harlem. They were the equivalent of a viral sensation. Black is Beautiful was the rallying cry that took on new meaning and significance. From its first paraphrasing by John Sweat Rock, in 1858, to Marcus Garvey coining the term, to Carlos Cooks, and ultimately, thanks to a group of creative, talented, visionary young men, the creation of a global movement. They were known as African Jazz Art Society and Studio, or more affectionately, AJASS. These pioneers were mainly artists by profession and promoters by avocation. AJASS pioneered a new concept of promoting pride to Black people through a series of fashion and modeling shows entitled Naturally. The first official show was entitled Naturally 62. Showing pride in Black hair and other physical phenotypes was unpopular at the time. Coming out of the 1950s, the popular thing to do was mimic Caucasian hair, looks, and fashion embodiment. The Grandassa Models were bold and brave. With the help of Abby Lincoln and Max Roach, they took their modeling shows to jam-packed audiences nationwide. They graced magazine covers and were featured in publications across the United States, Africa, and the Caribbean. The Grandassa Models influenced music as they beautifully graced album covers. They influenced the look, mantras, and consciousness of the Black Panther Party, who continued the Black aesthetic success with women like Angela Davis, Kathleen Cleaver, and Elaine Brown, who raised the consciousness of the movement among mainstream popular culture. The Grandassa legacy lives on in today's style so much that when the runway fashion shows are chronicled that pushed fashion forward over the last 100 years, the Grandassa Models sit among the elite 8 most important. The highest fashion trendsetters and brand influencers in culture, such as Rihanna, still recognize the greatness of the Grandassa Models.
What I love about what we just saw and how that applies to controlling the narrative is that I think it's wonderful, lightweight, when we get accepted by others.
Right.
But I really love when we take the lead to show our own shit. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
And then once taking that leap, seeing the opportunities that come with that as traveling the world, modeling, introducing the world to Black fashion. Indeed. And I remember, like I was starting to say, how the fashion fairs, fashion shows, you inspired me as a young model. Yeah. But now seeing this, or being introduced to this as a young person, really more when I got into the industry and got introduced to your uncle, you know, because he's one of the most famous, sought out of Black photographers. And I came up in the 90s, so he was, I think he had just started reinventing himself again. Right. So I got introduced to the whole Grandassa, but again, it always gave me such a feeling of pride because it was us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How was that growing up in the household? Your mom is, I don't know if she's one of the models, but I know she's one of the...
Yeah, my mom is one of the original 8 models. In fact, you know, you talked about the marketing. Right now, this weekend, I'm going to be going to Chicago. I'm going to be appearing at a Black is Beautiful beer convention. They have a
Wait,
beer
say
line,
it again?
A Black is Beautiful beer convention.
Beer, B-E-E-R.
Yeah, drinking.
Okay. Black is Beautiful and beer?
Yes.
Okay.
They've redesigned the can. It's really a limited line of beer that sells in February and March. I was supposed to be there before, but I'm going this weekend.
Okay.
I'm going to have a talk about the history of Black is Beautiful movement. They credit my father and my uncle with, although they should be credited in AJASS, because it wasn't just those two, it was the organization with starting the Black is Beautiful movement. So I'm going to give a talk out there, and all of the advertisements are of my mother, who was one of the original 8 female Grandassa models. Okay. Actually, you know, technically the Grandassa models were a little more. There were 2 men who were also Grandassa models. Okay. There's a male model you see in there. His name is Frank.
Give him some love.
We have Jimmy Abu, who was a choreographer, and he taught the models how to walk. Okay. And he was a male model. He used to hang out with Sidney Poitier a lot, tap dancing and practice boxing. And then there was another one. His name is Frank Adu Robinson. Actually, there's a documentary with Bill Duke and others coming out just about him. He was also a member of AJASS. He was the director of the AJASS Repertory Theater. He's in a host of movies and television, etc. All of the plays, AJASS plays he that my father wrote, he was the director.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's going to be coming out soon. But those two were both also male models, and they are also considered Grandassa models. But everybody, of course, because women you know, that's a different power women bring to the sort of things. But actually, technically, those two men are also Grandassa models.
But it's crazy, like you said, women, we were the face of it because we are nice to look at.
Indeed.
But the people who was behind it were men.
Yeah,
so men saw the value in using us, not in a bad way, but to get this message, of course, of once again, loving yourself.
Well, I must say, Kitty, what a lot of people don't, even though the women were the power or the engine behind it, it really was kind of starting earlier than that, because there was a lot going on in the newspapers and the magazines. As I said, this book here, the president of AJASS was my father, Elambe Brath.
Okay.
Right? And he had a comic strip in a New York paper, and he was doing a whole bunch of cartoons promoting the idea of black is beautiful. And he was using my mother. She was then Helen White, was her name at the time.
Helen White?
Yes.
Why White and not Helen Black? Okay, we have to talk to you. Okay, go ahead.
Well, that's her maiden name.
Oh, okay.
So she was his muse, and they were pushing the idea forth into things, you know, in the mainstream, using newspaper, because there was, at that time, there was a black paper called the Amsterdam News, still in existence, and there was another one called the Citizen Call.
Okay.
And on the Citizen Call, his cartoon used to run on the front of the paper.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of ways that they could do propaganda and change the narrative and the message was using cartoons in the paper. And so that's what this whole book that just came out by a university studying these sort of history deals a lot with. So, you know, they're using that design. Of course, they're doing the jazz album covers and those sort of things. And they get in the photography to get these women on, because, you know, jazz was like hip hop at the time. Right now, everybody is, you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce, right?
Sample.
AJASS had Max Roach and Abby Lincoln. Abby Lincoln at the time, they used to call her the Black Marilyn Monroe.
Okay.
But, you know, Max Roach is the greatest jazz drummer in the history of the art. So, you know, they had some real heavyweights who were really part of AJASS. You know, who were, you know, in the cartoon, the little animation, you see they had the green bus, and it was going across the country. Of course, they showed the green bus because there's segregation. At that time, you had to be in the green bus and go into those certain places and things like that. But for them to get in those venues, you needed to have people who were powerful to advocate, like, oh, I got this group. They're going to come in here. Yeah. And Max Roach and Abby Lincoln were stars. So they were the ones setting up the venue. So it's so ironic that I'm going to Chicago this week to talk to Full Circle. You know, that was one of their first stops. But yeah, you know, so there's a lot there with that. Because, you know, I mentioned some of the Jimmy Owens, NEA Jazz Master Hall of Fame, and all the way from the Bronx. But Max Roach and Abby Lincoln were a huge part. You know, Miles Davis, who helped finance some AJASS shows, who was a good friend of my father and other AJASS members. You know, he could never be involved because he was under contract, and that wouldn't be allowed. But he wanted to be out. You know, he wanted to help. So Max was rolling in the green. He did a little something, you know, subsidizing certain things. Okay. So, you know, it's full circle with the jazz artists and the women and these jazz members. You know, they kind of was trying to cover all the arts, all bases, you know. And then, you know, so recently in the Bronx, about a week and a half ago, from our Bronx Borough president, the lovely Vanessa Gibson, gave proclamations to the AJASS member. You know, looking at for the birth of the Black Arts movement and the Black is Beautiful movement, because, you know, a lot of people don't talk about AJASS in terms of the Black Arts movement. They, a lot of times, have the timeline at like 1966, but it wasn't. It was really started in the late 50s. You know, AJASS, they had their griots. They was already doing the spoken word. They had their own theater repertoire, you know, and of course they had the models, and they had the most amazing flyers, because almost all of the members went to a specialized school of art, school of visual arts at that time. You know, my father was the second to integrate it after Tom Fields, the legendary artist. Tom Fields went there. So all of these gentlemen, they were futurists. All of them were creatives, and they were doing things way ahead of their time and getting it out there, and they used the arts to get it done.
And it's funny because so our connection, one of our connections is the Bishops, and Eric as a creative, you know, use so much elements from music, jazz in particular. So a lot of our early marketing campaigns was like retrospectives of like old album covers, like that yellow, green, red strip set you guys used to use a lot. That's not the word I was looking for, but so when we ended the marriage, well, when I ended the marriage, I took some of those elements because I was so impressed by his creativeness as an artist that I still wanted to implement that now in my own marketing when it came to the KittyRose lifestyle. So my first flyer with me as a model on it is still like a retrospect or a tribute to those old album covers or those old artwork, I should say, from those flyers being done at these events, because he used a lot of those imageries in a lot of his T-shirt designs.
You know what's so funny about that? There is a huge mural on 125th Street.
Yes,
that was done by his brother and his partner, Katori Walker.
That's crazy.
Evan Bishop and Katori Walker. It's right next to DMX. It's huge.
And when I saw it, I saw the big AJASS image, and then when I saw E. Bishop, I was like, what the hell? And then he told me you went to college with him.
Yeah, we went to college.
Crazy.
So, we were housemates right off campus.
Crazy.
So that is, as you said, a very, very, very small world. And he was inspired to do the mural. That first trailer you showed with the film, this won 7 awards. He saw it and he said, oh, you know, he was inspired to partner up with the Uptown Collective, I believe is the name of the organization, with Carrie, and put it in between the Boricua Garden and the DMX.
Okay.
It's the huge homage to Black is Beautiful,
So you grew up in a house of 7 kids.
Well, technically...
Well, 6 kids, right. Six kids, and then on the weekends your sister would drop in. But 6 kids, 7 kids.
It still was 7 because my cousin was living with us full time. My oldest cousin,
I can't imagine, one, how that household was being run by all that Black power and Black love. Was it... I have 2 questions. Was it really, because you always hope that the way things look on the outside is the way things are on the inside, you know? And so many of our heroes and sheroes, like, I'm a huge fan of Nina Simone, who was a very huge activist in our community, but was a horrible mother.
Nina Simone had been to AJASS shows, definitely. Nina Simone, Miriam Makeba, they all have been to AJASS shows. In fact, Miriam Makeba tried to take a number of the Grandassa Models with her on tour for over a year, my mother being one of them, but my mother got a house full of kids, so that ain't happening.
And so your mother had a house full of kids. They were mothers. Well, Nina was a mom. I don't know about the other sister. They didn't seem to have that problem leaving their kids behind. So how was it in the house growing up with such 2 powerhouse? Because even though, you know, she was your mom, you know, and she was a model, and she was your father's partner, helper, you know what I'm saying? That's a huge responsibility, and still maintain the household. You guys are going through civil rights shit. You guys are going through trying to not only teach and love our own community, but help your community love and teach the community. Like, I can't imagine the beauty, but the not so beautiful moments that was growing up, if any.
I'll say this. I was fortunate because my mother was, for the most part, most of the time, stay-at-home mom. My father worked, but a lot of times my mother was working as an educator. She was in the school systems. My mother was basically also an activist. She wasn't just a model. My mother is the former spokesperson for Partners for Reform in Science and Math. It's an acronym called PRISM. Jacob Javits, who, you know, Jacob Javits Center's created after, gave her that position because in the 70s, my mother shut down schools. She was one of the original whistleblowers under Ralph Nader's whistleblower law. And she shut down a lot of schools in Harlem because they had asbestos in there. And even though they knew asbestos was cancer, my mother made a big stink of it. And she just so happened to get lucky. I mean, there are 2 people who were very instrumental, Jacob Javits and Senator Pell, when my mother made this a big issue. You know, my mother was talking about PPE way before, protective equipment, way before we had COVID. Because after they started to do the work in the schools, there used to be a lot of, from Guatemala, a lot of Guatemalan and workers coming. They would just try to come and work on that asbestos in their regular clothes. And my mother like, tell your boss, no, you got to have the right equipment, the right suit. So under the Ralph Nader's whistleblower law, she was one of the first. So they had closed down all these schools, cost the city millions, and everybody had to get bused to different schools. My mother used to be on the television every day growing up, you know. So I was always on my best behavior because I know eyes were watching her. I can't say the same for all of my siblings, but I was on my best behavior because I saw my parents a lot, and I knew that my parents were significant people. My father working also in television, like it is ABC for many years with Gil Noble.
They're about to celebrate him,
Yeah. So I mean, I was on my best behavior, but I can't speak for my siblings. I don't want to give all of their business out, but you know, I'm not one who gave my parents the high blood pressure or anything. I was trying to be so good because I knew some stuff. Siblings, we have our own.
Yes. Right.
Just between us. I ain't gonna tell on nobody.
Okay.
But I just know if this hits the fan, they need to just be only dealing with one. It can't be all of us in trouble and stuff like that. So, and as I said, but my mother, because she worked in the school and worked with other parents, she was the PTA president, you know, she could keep her eyes on us, you know, and things like that, because we all went to basically the same school in the same neighborhood. So because she was involved in education in such a way, she was able to be close to us, you know, but my other brother right over me went to Kennedy High School, say, for example, in the Bronx. By that time, things were getting at it. I knew some things that was going on, but, you know, as a parent, you can't be everywhere and everything.
Right.
And some things may never get back to you, but I happen to know, you know, there's some things that
happened in my house with my kids later or recently.
Exactly.
And I just knew things didn't happen like that growing up.
But in the home, it was really calm. In fact, it was so calm, I had a bad modeling because I never saw my parents argue with each other. You know, I mean, early on in relationships, you argue with me, it's over. Because I never saw it. I never saw that sort of modeling. And one day, my mom asked me what happened to one of my girlfriends. I was like, we got into an argument. My mother was like, so what? I'm like, you and Baba, we don't call my father Dad, you and Baba, y'all never argue? Are you kidding? She said, we argue, we just didn't argue in front of y'all. So as a young person, sometimes you see these things modeled and they can work against you because you don't know. No, that's normal. You just work it out, this and all of that. If you argue with me, that's disrespect, you know? Like, this not gonna work. So after that, once she told me that, everything changed up. Then, you know, in fact, I probably worked too hard to keep stuff after that. But before that revelation happened, I didn't know. So sometimes when you're with your parents a lot, you can see things that you think because you don't see it there that everything's supposed to be like that. So you got to talk to your parents. You got to talk to your loved ones around you instead of assuming as I did at that time.
Amen. So you are absolutely right about, you know, perspective and what we think we see in the household, you know what I'm saying? And it goes back to controlling the narrative, because if you didn't talk to your mom later on in life, you probably would have still been walking around with that myth that they never argued throughout their whole, how many years that they were married. Married. But then, again, coming back to how heavy they both were. So if your father is traveling on television, writing in the newspaper, writing plays, your mother's PTA, closing down schools, raising a household, being someone's wife, and you're a middle kid.
Yeah.
How are you the one that is carrying on the legacy of the legacy?
It's Brathwaite because basically my father, you know, so my father was born Cecil Brathwaite.
Okay.
He changed his name during the 60s. My uncle was born Ronnie Brathwaite. He changed his name to Kwame.
Were these slave names? Were they plantation names and they wanted to change it?
If you go to Barbados, so my grandparents are from Barbados.
Okay.
And Brathwaite is a very popular name in Barbados if you look in the phone book.
Okay.
You know, so there's a very English-sounding name. Yeah, it sounds English and everything. And my father didn't want any part of any of that. So he even told my grandfather before he passed, he like, you know, I'm changing my name. You know, this and all that.
Was he the first out of them?
Technically, he was the first between my
or 6 boys.
No, between my.
I'm talking about your grandparents had 6 boys.
No, my grandparents had 3 boys. It's just my father Ilambe, my uncle Kwame, and my Uncle John.
That I know. Another small one.
But look, they also had another brother. His name was Keith Campbell.
Okay.
He has a different mother. So and he stayed in Barbados. Yes, he is a musician also.
Keith Captain?
No, Keith Campbell.
Oh, okay. I'm like
Keith
another
Campbell,
person. Okay.
He did the annual Barbados Christmas album. You know, he never came to the States.
Okay.
But, so he has a different mother. But yeah, so technically they also have another brother.
Okay, so your father is one of three. He made the transition. Both your other uncles are still here.
Alive, yes.
But again, out of your parents, 6 kids, 7 really. How are you as the middle child, the one traveling and doing the marketing, along with the others who are behind AJASS? Yeah. But you as the sibling, as one of the children, how are you involved? Why are you involved?
I think basically I'm a Virgo, and it's part of my personality. Not really. To be honest with you, I think that it's because I was made my father's power of attorney and my mother's power of attorney, as well as health proxy. Both of them, for all this activity and busyness, both of them had suffered a stroke a few years ago. One time I had both of my parents in the nursing home at the same time, and I'm running back and forth to doing all of these things. So not that I wanted the burden, but because they both had chosen me, and I was already working with my father on a lot of the elements of what AJASS's role, historical role, because he was gonna write a book, and then lo and behold, even though he passes, a university writes a book about him, you know? So, but I was already working with him to put certain things that they had did, you know, in chronology in this historical place, you know. But I think that I had an onus to do that, because before, you know, he passed, he was saying that this is what he was going to do, and I was going to work with him on that. And my mother wanted me to basically be a health proxy and her power of attorney of any decision. So they entrusted in me, so I felt like I'm responsible for their legacies also.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think if had not that happened, maybe it would have been split, but both of them named me in both of these responsibilities.
So that comes to our Jesus moment then. Yeah. You know, at the end of, you've been watching the show, at least parts of it. Yeah. At the end, we kind of have like this Jesus moment of what we feel, or at the end of what we've been talking about. So in all the interviews that you've been doing, and that you will continue to do to acknowledge the Black is Beautiful exhibit, but also all the things that's happening now with AJASS, what do you want folks to know that they haven't heard yet before, to make them want to do some more investigation to find out the history and continue the legacy of the story of the AJASS community?
I would say that the thing that that people don't know about AJASS, for one, is hidden in books. Like all right, so recently, Jonathan Egg came out with a book about Muhammad Ali, and it tells the story about when Ali was, you know, Ali, before he got with Malcolm, he used to do a lot of teasing of other boxers, and he would always use the word black in a pejorative way as a curse word, black, ugly, or this or that, saying that to other boxers. And my father challenged him when my father, is the president of AJASS, wrote him an open letter that appeared in the Chicago Defender. So the writer of that book, Jonathan Egg, did that, and he talked about how, you know, AJASS is the only one who basically put Ali in his place. And you can only hear those stories about how the Black is Beautiful movement came in by reading. So I would just encourage people to read books, and you're gonna get a lot of minutia, especially read about our history, and you'll be able to put things together for your own self. I mean, they don't need me, because as I said, this book is about Ali.
Right.
And he puts the whole letter, what my father said to Ali, and that relationship worked itself out where they became good friends with Ali. When you see my uncle's pictures with Ali, Ali flew them out to Africa for the fight, but it all started with confrontation about Black is Beautiful. And Jonathan Egg lays it out in his book, Ali, in 3 pages about that. And these things are covered by other people because they're reading and doing the work. So I just say to people, read books. You know, it's nice to have social media and television, but read some books sometimes.
Amen.
You know, too many times you go to people's house, they don't have no books in their house. Put some books in your house. That's it.
Put some books in your house.
Some
Wait,
books
say that.
in your
What's
house.
one on your camera?
Yeah.
Say it to the camera.
Put some books in your house. You know what I'm saying? I used to watch MTV Raps. Nobody had no books. It was just TVs. Like, y'all serious? Put some books in your house.
I like that.
That's all I'm saying.
Oh my goodness, I appreciate this. We never, it's so funny because when I first started thinking about doing an hour show, I felt like I didn't have enough time, and now the time just goes by so fast. So I want you to stay on.
Yeah.
Because since you are co-hosting with me,
Indeed.
we are going to do our spotlight segment together.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm excited about this because this was a good show. Like between you and the next person.
Oh, yeah, she's powerful. I've been reading up on her, like cancer survivor, and that, I don't want to give it away, but wow, I mean, she's doing some things.
She's doing some things. So,
big things.
with no further ado, right? Is that the way you
no
say
further
it?
ado.
With no further ado, let's introduce my Spotlight Hour.
Our
Spotlight segment this week, which is DJ CHERISHTHELUV. Let's give her some applause, everybody. Cut in. DJ CHERISHTHELUV.
There she is. There she is. There she is. Wow.
Look at wow. Ooh, child now.
She's
Is it
fly.
coming? I know. I was like,
She
she's
coming
in
here.
Cali.
She's supposed to give us a memo, because I would have came a little something in this little polo sweater. She got the mink on, got the black underneath with the chain. She looking just like, she looking like the spotlight.
Yes,
so she
looking like love.
That's
What?
The spotlight
okay,
segment.
so before we let her speak, before we go to her, I have a little video I want to show that she's not expecting yet. So let me tell you, okay, I know you're on, and I know we got her Skyped in, but DJ CHERISHTHELUV is a DJ, right? I first met her in Rikers prison doing DJing, and then I saw her again at the one of them bars in New York with Nile Rodgers, right?
Okay.
But wait, but wait. But wait, you know what I'm saying? Then she started to promote this little Netflix special she was on. And I'm like, Joe Cole? Who's Joe Cole? I had never heard of this cat before.
Right.
Now he's all over the place, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like Joe Cole is all over the place because of DJ CHERISHTHELUV, not because of him.
Exactly.
And then she became DJ CHERISHTHELUV, who opens now for Arsenio. But wait, let's go to her clip. I'm talking too much. Let's go to her clip, and then we come back to her.
Let's go for it.
What's up? We're DJing for Jenny Synthetic, Nile Rodgers. A little Oprah. Oprah likes it. You know, Oprah's dancing. Oprah's boogieing. A mix. What? Oh, that's legit. We are taco.
Oprah? DJ CHERISHTHELUV, baby. Let's do it. Welcome, my love. And she officiated Alethea's wedding. She also officiates wedding, but Alethea married her art. So she did that pre-COVID. All right, I did not talk.
I follow her on Twitter, on Instagram. I don't know if I saw if she posted anything about that.
Well, we're going to have to get her to do that. So now the floor is yours, homie. What's good?
Listen, my God, you can hear me, right? I'm coming from all the way in LA, so I hope you can hear me right.
Yes. Welcome, baby.
Thank you. My God, you know, I'm in this perpetual learning how to receive flowers kind of thing.
Amen.
Oh, and I've been really reckoning with that. And I'm in the time now where it's like, yeah, receive them, because if you don't, you're kind of disrespecting the people who are giving them, right? Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much for giving me those flowers and for having me on your beautiful show. And your energy, Kat, is always inspiring. You know, okay, I work with those people, but that's the past. This is today. Who am I with today, right now? That's right, both of you.
Okay.
And I really appreciate that. I'm just so warmed. It's such an honor to be here with you.
So the honor is mine, but she said that was yesterday.
Okay.
What she's here to do is to talk about why she's here today.
Indeed.
Outside of being this beautiful spirit, you kind of dropped the ball a little bit by sharing a little bit with the guests. I mean, not the guests, the audience. So let's show the video that Cynthia. Okay, only friends call her Cynthia. Sorry. Okay. Let's see the video that Cynthia, DJ CHERISHTHELUV, sent us about what she is doing now.
My name is Cynthia. In 2008, I sustained a mild traumatic brain injury. Years later, was still feeling like there was something wrong. I was getting more headaches. I saw a doctor, and the doctor had said something new must be happening. They said, let's start with a breast exam. I was diagnosed with stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma, triple positive. Looking back, what I wish I knew was to compare your nipples. One nipple was much more dense, much harder, as opposed to the other one, which was soft and just kind of doing its normal thing. And I never noticed because I didn't compare. Once I got my diagnosis, I realized, oh God, I need to learn what strength is. I'm going to lose my hair. I might be losing my breasts. I'm definitely going to be looking sick for several months. I started to think of chemo and treatment like it was a cleanse versus thinking of it like a poison going in. So if you're diagnosed triple positive like I was, that means you're also going to be taking Herceptin. Once I started Herceptin, my body started reacting to it, and they found that I was allergic to it. What's the alternative? She looked me right in the eyes and said, be happy. I was thinking, what are you talking about? And I realized if you weren't happy and supporting your immune system, your chances were kind of tough. Here I am today focusing on what does be happy mean for me, 7 years in remission and counting. Here comes October 2015, and it's time for me to have both my breasts removed. I just knew in me this was the best thing I needed to do for myself. I don't miss putting on bras, I'll be honest. And I brought with me, actually, all the brand new bras that I bought 3 months before my diagnosis in 2015. This bag right here, which I haven't opened since 2015. And I hadn't opened this because I just felt like I was done. That's 7 years ago. It's amazing. It just makes me realize how far I've come along in this journey. And only now in 2022 am I realizing I needed to address my physical strength. I am deadlifting 200 pounds as of the other day and bench pressing, over 100 pounds. And that's a message I want to put out there. Like when we go through these things with our bodies, that we can still rebuild and still find stronger versions of ourselves thanks to discovering a really amazing workout partner. Hey, thank you so much for being part of my incredible journey. I thought I had got everything sorted out, but I needed her to show up in my life to figure this last part out. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. So I knew parts of the story, but okay.
Yeah.
Both your breasts, you don't miss bras. You had some big titties because I'm some big bras. so you might not miss the bras, but I'm sure whoever was loving them titties are missing them.
Oh, man.
Well, let me just say, my ghost titties are the same size. They can be whatever size they want to be. But you know, it's amazing. And as a woman, when you think about things that you lose, like I think about it all the time. Like I lost breasts, but what did I gain? I gained an understanding of my body. I gained life. I gained knowledge. I gained these opportunities to express like how I got to survive all that stuff. And this stuff it's incredible, and it's not taught to us. And why am I alive? I learned this so that I could share with everyone. basically what you saw in the video of me coming back to my body. So over the years, so I was diagnosed in 2015. It took 7 years for me to hit the gym because I had been working so much in my emotional, my spiritual, and my mental strength, but I didn't look at my physical strength because as a cancer survivor of all the things that we survive, I just thought, okay, I'm injured, I'm healing, I've got scars, I'm just happy to be alive. But no one had told me that you can get stronger from these things. And that's how you write your narrative. You think about, like, what are the values you walk around with? I had to re-examine those and thinking like, oh, I think I'm supposed to just kind of get old and die from here. That's so wrong. And turns out, like, the older I got, the stronger I got. No one told me that to happen. I was going through cancer treatment, you know, all this stuff. Getting to understand what your values are so that you can look at the you that you want to be compared to who you are now and then kind of reconcile the two. That's what I did. So I want to drop gems. This is like the first time I'm going to drop gems.
Please, we ready. Do I need a pen? Do I need to take notes? Okay.
Now you're recording it. You're going to listen to this all the time. Thinking back, I think back to, you know, when I was figuring out this 360 degrees of wellness for me. So spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. This whole like, oh, now I feel complete. I realized where I am today that life needs to be robust, fun, light, and nourishing. Anything that doesn't support that got to go. Everything that supports that is healing me. Now, let me just add, I was taken off a treatment. I shouldn't even be alive. But here I am, living more life than I ever did before a diagnosis, experiencing all this stuff, you know, because I'm now getting an understanding what my values are and will be for the rest of my life. I'm starting to write it down, work the memoir, share it with the world, because I think that's the deal. I survived it, so what's the deal for what I learned? So I'm going to drop that with you. Robust, light, fun, and nourishing. And robust doesn't mean like toxic positivity, like shit's going to happen. That's what makes it robust. Those are the ups and downs. But it doesn't mean you can't find your ways to having lightness about it. I played with my cancer. My cancer was my muse. Look where we are, you know? And you're going to get things like this thrown at you in life. We're all creative beings. What do you do with that? We're all very good with imagining things. I imagined myself in a billboard in Times Square surviving, and guess where I ended up? In a billboard in Times Square. Wow. I didn't want to do to myself, imagining myself dying and getting sick and all this stuff. I just like thought I deserved more than that. And when I coach people who just get a diagnosis, I ask them, you know, one of the first things I ask them is, do you feel like you deserve to get better? And most people say no. So how about that for writing your narrative? You know, so again, your narrative is going to write itself based on the values that you walk around with. So I'm going to give you some more. Think about what heals you. Music heals me. Know that. Know what is specific to you. Music might not heal the next person, but if it heals you, you stick with it. I also want to live a life that's healthy, wealthy, wild, and free. So that means I would do everything that supports that, because that's my goal. That's what I want for myself. And as I said, the stronger I get, all of that is so important. I also tell myself, I mean, this stuff was painful. Cancer was painful, but I don't want to trip over things behind me. So I don't think about the past that way. The past is like just kind of part of the story, part of the journey. And it gave me so much information that enables me to help the next person. And that is a joy. The more people you help with what you've been scarred with, it doesn't, you know, I don't do the whole, like, what do they say? Everything happens for a reason. Yeah. I don't really do that. I'm more like, because this happened, what can I do with it?
I like that.
Then you have the flow to then be your best, do your best. And it is as simple as this. when you do your best, you get blessed.
Wow. She said, you do your best, you get blessed. Okay.
I mean, fight me on that.
Yes, you do your best,
Fight
you get
me
blessed.
on that.
You're right. She's right. She's right. You know, before we go, because we don't have that much time, Sin K has something for you.
Yeah, I want to know about, you know, I see one thing on your profile is about chef and food. How does food contribute to your wellness and others? How can they use food?
Okay.
Oh my God, you just asked the most perfect question. So I wish I was a chef. I have a lot of amazing chef friends in my life. I cook. I can cook a nice, you know, nice food and stuff, but talking about food, so that's part of the nourishing part of my mantra. And you got to have lots of mantras to survive this world in 2023. So talk about nourishing for a minute. I learned this years ago, that we got to think about food like this. There's primary food and secondary food. Primary food is everything you do in life that nourishes you. That's not what you put in your mouth, chew and swallow. This interview, primary food. Petting my dog, primary food. Having, like, you know, movie night, that's primary food. Reading a book, more books, right? Primary food. Secondary food is the pizza I'm about to eat, the bowl of spaghetti. Secondary food is the stuff you chew, swallow, and then, you know, poop. This. Now get this. And I learned this from IIM. This is so beautiful. The better quality primary food you have in your life, the better quality secondary food you will take into your body. And adversely, think about all the bad jobs you've had and you're sitting there ordering some junk food because you don't care, you know, and you're just like, everything's a mess. Think about the primary food, all the non-edible nourishments in your life. That's like walking on the street on a sunny day. That's primary food. All that stuff nourishes us. Toxic relationships, terrible primary food. I bet in your toxic relationships, you don't eat so great. Or maybe you drink too much or smoke too much. I mean, you know, think about those things and you'll have a better sense of what is nourishing you and what is food to you.
Wow. Okay. Our topic today was controlling the narrative. You've had so many highs, but you've had some lows. How do you stay the course, but how do you control the narrative that you want people to know about DJ CHERISHTHELUV? Because everything is not always roses. You share your journey via social media and other projects that you got brewing right now. How do you stay high in the low?
Okay, so that's the illusion. Who said it's highs and lows? So let me show you what it actually is. And we're just going to take this as Cynthia science. We think it's like this, right? All right, highs and lows, right? We think it's like highs and lows, but it's actually lefts and rights, and you stay center. And we just navigate like that. It's really like that. Wow. That's what I say.
Interesting. I like that.
I like that.
So I'm going like this now and not like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is the part of the show, guys, that we want you to follow, like, and share. All three of us. All three of us. You guys have our social media links. You have our shows. Continue to support our journeys, because our journeys is a reflection of all of your journeys as you all go through these next chapters in your life. Because we are just going through these next chapters, chapter after chapter after chapter. And now we've learned it's this way and not this way. Okay. So once again, everyone, this has been another great episode of The Next Chapter. I'm so grateful for my two guest hosts tonight, and I can't ask for anything more. So until next time, I'm your host, Minister Cat, a.k.a. KittyRose, and this is The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. We'll see you next week, everyone. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Sharp pains and bellies, all days be heavy when you're programmed to survive. Legendary ciphers got the MCs in the jars. The city never sleeps, slept from 1 to 5 when COVID hit the block and we had to stay inside. Tough love is all hunter with myself. Learn to navigate winters with no coat. If you never been cold, you never been broke. Hustle 24/7 just to stay afloat. So New York, like dollar.